Hi, this is John Stange, and today we're answering the question, how can you earn the respect of your church? And I thought this was a great question, so I'm looking forward to answering this today, and I have 5 suggestions that I think are helpful if you're trying to earn the respect of the church that you lead. And the first suggestion I have is this: live with integrity. And I think this applies to all areas of life. If you're somebody that desires to be respected by others, live with integrity. Be the type of person who is the same no matter what context you're in. So whether you're standing in front of a group and preaching, or whether you're sitting around a table, or whether someone runs into you in the store, which inevitably will happen. The other day I was at a restaurant, and as I was paying my check, I was up at the counter paying the check, and another pastor came up behind me and said, "Hey, how you doing, Pastor?" And I turned around, and it was a good reminder to me that people are looking, people are watching wherever you go. Live with integrity. Be the same person, whether there are many eyes on you or you think there are no eyes on you. Be the same person. Live that way before the Lord and before the people that He has called you to serve. The second way we can earn respect is always follow through on what you say you're going to do. I remember, this is probably about 15 years ago, I was talking to a woman who went to a church that I was familiar with, and I had recently been talking to her pastor, and he told me he was taking up guitar and that his intention was to start leading worship with that guitar during their worship services. And so I just mentioned it offhand to her, and she laughed. And I thought, well, why are you laughing? And she said, "Oh, this'll just be another one of those things that he tells us that he's going to do, that he doesn't actually do." So his church was at a spot where when he said something, they actually thought he probably wouldn't do it, and as a result, they lost a degree of respect for him. So always follow through on what you say you're going to do. A third way to earn the respect of your church is to admit your mistakes and mend them. Every one of us makes mistakes, whether you're in leadership, whether you're serving in a different role. We all make mistakes, every single one of us. And when you're leading a group of people, sometimes it can be tempting not to admit your mistakes because there's a part of us that thinks that somehow that makes us less of a leader, or that people might not respect us if we admit our mistakes. But I've discovered that the opposite is true. If you're somebody who has the integrity and the honesty to admit your mistakes and then mend them, people tend to trust you more because they realize you're not somebody that's so full of himself that he won't admit when he makes an error. A fourth way to earn the respect of your church is this: confront what needs to be confronted. There are going to be times where there are going to be very difficult issues that you're presented with in the context of your church. There might even be difficult people that you're presented with that need to be confronted. I know a pastor who years ago used to go from church to church, and he would spend just about 2 or 3 years serving a church before he would move to the next one. And I noticed the pattern, and the pattern was this: whenever there was a difficult issue or an awkward issue, he would move. He would leave. He didn't like confrontation, and so he would leave instead of confronting what needed to be confronted. But I also remember years ago, there was a man in the church that I was serving who was upsetting many of the women in the church with his abrasive way of speaking and acting, and there were certain things that he did that were just so far beyond what was acceptable that I realized I needed to confront him. And so I confronted him, and I addressed it with him, and it solved the issue that the church was having. Now, it wasn't a pleasant thing to do. I didn't enjoy the confrontation, but I also remember saying to myself, "John, either lead or give this job to someone who's actually going to do the job. Either lead or give it to somebody else." And I thought, all right, if the Lord's called me to lead, I need to confront what needs to be confronted. It wasn't pleasant, but it was necessary. It had to be done. And the fifth suggestion that I'd give to you in regard to how to gain the respect of your church would be this: don't be petty. Be somebody who is known for showing grace and mercy. Don't hold grudges. Don't fuss about little things that you can just let go. Be the type of person who displays grace and mercy. As a recipient of the grace and mercy that Christ has shown us, show grace and mercy to those that the Lord's called you to lead. Don't be petty. Don't hold grudges. Overlook and forgive what you can overlook and forgive. And don't keep a record of wrongs of all the times this person or that person has sinned against you. Learn to forgive it, learn to move past it, and glorify Christ in the process. I love what we're told in 1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 12. And in that verse of Scripture, the Apostle Paul gave this advice to Timothy, a young pastor, and he said, "Let no one despise you for your youth, but set the believers an example in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, in purity." So that's what the Lord's called us to do as well. We're called to set an example. So whether you're a young pastor or whether you're a seasoned pastor, set an example. And when you set an example with your life in these areas that I just suggested, and certainly many others, you can earn the respect of your church, and it gives you the credibility to be able to lead in such a way that people will follow your leadership. So that was our question for today. If this video was helpful to you and you wouldn't mind, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, I'd encourage you to subscribe. If you'd like more content and more information that might help you in your walk as a pastor or in your role of leadership as a pastor, be sure to stop by our website, which is pastor.us, and you'll see a spot on there that you can submit a question. If there's a question that you'd like me to address on this channel in one of these videos, submit it at pastor.us, and maybe it'll be the topic of an upcoming video. Thanks again for watching, and have a great day.